I'd like to start this night, or continue this night since we've already begun. I've had some requests in the past week to speak in this teleconference about Japan, about what happened there and the whys and wheretofores and the implications of it, not only for them, but for the rest of the world especially, and that tying in somehow to all these earth changes and what is to come. So I'm happy to honor that request and speak a little bit about it. I think obviously not for the collective consciousness, but for many of those who've had their spiritual awakenings and are studying esoteric teachings and higher consciousness, it goes without saying that the great and cataclysmic earth changes that have been prophesied for millennia through all the world's religions and through all the great prophets and seers and sages and mystics, we are now very much in the throes of this, that it was not simply a prediction or a vision. It was a fact, a historical fact, not yet manifested, and we are now right in the midst of it, and not really, not even close to the crescendo. So, contrary to what the masses now, I'm speaking first about the minority of people who live in a somewhat awakened state, if not fully awakened, contrary to what that body of beings knows and believes and recognizes as ultimate truth, there is what the collective holds, and that is the doomsayers and naysayers that the world is coming to an end, and this is God's wrath and fury, and we'll all burn in hell for all our sins and all of that. And that, of course, with all due respect to the overwhelming population of the planet, is malarkey, garbage, nonsense. There are many other descriptives I could use. So to allay fears, the world is not coming to an end. In fact, quite the contrary, the world is beginning. There's a very beautiful and new world whose time has not only come, but is long overdue. And the way I simply put it, to help, again, allay these fears and have people come from a place of centeredness and groundedness and safety and security, is to understand quite simply all that is happening is that love is regaining and reclaiming dominion of this planet, and I use love and God synonymously. Whether anyone likes it or not, believes it or not, agrees with it or not, or does anything about it or not, love/God is reclaiming dominion of this planet. What I mean by that is that God had gifted humanity this great, great gift called free will. Illusory though it is, it's quite a euphemism for separate will. But God gave us all this gift to use the full power of God any way we wanted. And for far too long now, mankind, and worse and worse and worse, has been using it for selfish pursuit, selfish gain, for gratifying the senses, all, paradoxically, to numb the feelings of being separate from God, of believing that one is separate from God. No one is separate. But being in that experience creates tremendous pain, and the belief system then increases, and then people go about numbing that pain through gratifying the senses, which of course is also temporary, and also, like any addiction, creates more desire and more hunger and even less satisfaction. So it's a giant downward spiral that ends up becoming self-destructive. As within, so without, it has also been self-destructive for the planet. And long and short of it, what's happening right now is, to coin a phrase, you might just say that the bank is calling in the loan. So it's becoming more and more difficult and more painful to use the gift of free will in non-accordance with God's will. In other words, people, for whosoever continues to use this gift of being granted the full power of the Creator, to use any way you want, people who continue to use that for greed and avarice and corruption and lack of integrity and selfishness and impure motive, this action, this choice will bring undue suffering unto the individual and any thing and anyone involved in said choices. By the same token, since we all have that free will and we all have that dispensation from the divine to use the power of God any way we like, and because everything is redeemable and everything is restorable and everything is forgivable, and God always offers us the path of grace, first and foremost in every single moment, even though almost all of humanity chooses the path of suffering, prefers suffering to grace, because of the nature of how God created us in concert with the divine, every human being has the chance to fully restore and redeem him herself in the twinkling of an eye, just like that. And I mean, at the very most, and at the very least, through great pain and suffering. But that course, that unfolding of events, is solely and completely the doing of the individual. It has nothing whatsoever to do with God. So there is no wrath of God, who is ever loving, ever forgiving. There is no, jail term or record scarlet letter carved in your chest that you have to do penance now for the rest of your life. Even the concept of karma people don't understand. You reap what you sow tenfold and all of that. Great acts of love create positive karma, positive transformation, and miracles in the world. And those also can be in one's own life, transmuting the karma of non-loving choices and actions. So it's not this eye for an eye business that the scriptures teach us. You can transmute at accelerated rates the wrongdoings of your past. You can transmute illness and discord among beloved friends and lovers and family and co-workers by making extra loving choices and by making changes within yourself. So this whole thing of the ball and chain and I got to do penance now for the next 50 years is just garbage. So it's important to let that go and realize, wait a minute, I might not have made the best choices in my past. I might have been ignorant. I might have been in fear. I might have been in greed or corruption. But I have the opportunity, as gifted and created by God Him herself, to recreate myself this very moment as love. In the twinkling of an eye, I can now be love and claim love and make a new commitment to live a life dedicated to God's most holy tenets that created and govern all creation. We all have the power, the right, the privilege, the ability to do this in every moment. That cannot be forgotten for a moment. So what you're seeing happening in the world is a combination of factors. Number one, we have love reclaiming dominion of the planet. We have a balancing, a cleansing that has to happen because there's so much imbalance in the world. There are areas that have to be cleansed, some more than other, using the physical. And the other factor that I did not share is that whenever an individual or a group or a business or whatever the body is of consciousness refuses to make those positive changes, refuses to recommit and restore love and integrity, as a last resort, last resort, God, the universe, your soul send you invitation, louder and louder and louder. But when all refusals come in return, eventually the universe makes the decision for you. And of course, it's not going to be comfortable because one has then refused the path of grace over and over and over and over. So all that's left is suffering. So there's a certain amount of karmic cleansing, and then there's a certain that's necessary to clean out old energies and discordant energies and restore balance in an area, in a group, in an individual, in a culture, in an organization, in a business, all of that. And then there is that lender of last resort saying, well, if you won't make this change that your soul and all of you knows needs to happen, then the universe will make it for you. So, also, I talked about the concept that the world isn't ending. There's a phoenix rising. There's a world that is crumbling, not ending. So I'm tying this in now. I'm moving into the concept of safety. One of the questions I get most commonly asked is, where can I go that's safe? There are volcanoes here, and earthquakes here, and tsunamis here, and hurricanes here, and drought here, and famine here, and disease here, and air pollution here, and water pollution here. I mean, what's left? Well, if you're going to go by those standards, probably about 3 square miles on the planet are left. But those are criteria, but they're not the most important criteria. So to help answer that question that so many people have now, and granted, these words are reaching a very few people relative to the world population right now, even though they're going out to 7 billion people in all creation. But this question, you're going to hear it in the news, you're going to hear it louder and louder and louder, and it's going to be becoming hysterical and panic-stricken, and as more happens. The only place to go to be safe is the safety that dwells in your own heart, with your connection to the divine. As you build that relationship with the divine, and purify yourself and come into greater and greater levels of integrity within yourself, within your life, and within your relationship with your Creator, therein lies your safety, because therein lies the harmony and the union with the Creator, which, like any good mother, would never harm its own child. And therefore, you will be exactly where you need to be. Someone asked me the question the other day, after this Japan quake, there's been a lot of talk now that the next major zone is this, I forget, the Cascadian subduction zone that goes from Northern California up to Vancouver. They're already getting tremors now, and they say the next massive one, even bigger than Japan's, will hit there with recurring tsunamis and all of that. And so a couple of my disciples asked me, well, why are we here then? We're here on the California coast. And I said, very easy. I said, we're sitting here just minutes from the San Andreas Fault and a stone's throw from a nuclear power plant, which could melt down. And I said, we're here for one reason. This is where God wants us. But what about the power plant? What about the tsunami? What about the earthquakes? And I said, well, I have to be where God puts me. But does that mean that nothing will happen here? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily at all. This house could crumble tomorrow from a 10-point quake. That's not the point. The point is when you're walking in integrity and in union with yourself, with your soul, with your Creator, you're exactly where you need to be. Ironically, you're exactly where you need to be anyway, even in total darkness and ignorance. But that's another discussion. But the point is, God's will cannot contradict itself through two different sources. So if I'm in alignment with my Creator, and within and without, and I know in my heart this is where God needs me, suppose God does need a massive quake to happen here and devastate the area, which might include this ashram and my home, then obviously God needs me here for that too. Perhaps to help people in their madness, to perhaps be here on location for rescue efforts when no one else would be allowed in. That's none of my business. My job is to serve God's will, not to figure it out. Remember, God's job is to protect and serve us. Our job is to serve and obey God. It's a beautiful harmony and dichotomy, a beautiful symbiosis. And when we do our part, everything just works beautifully. As soon as people start thinking they know more than God and don't tell me what to do and, I blah, 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 I know what's best for me, that type of arrogance is only surpassed by its ignorance. Nobody knows more than God. No one knows more than the Creator. So I don't make that claim. Anyone who makes that claim is ignorant beyond belief. So there's something to be said for a dose of humility. You can still know of your own majestic nature. You can still know of your own divinity and say, yes, I am God. I walk in this world as God and Jesus did, while at the same time deferring to the supreme majesty of the Creator. It's a parallel reality. It's a coexistence. It's not one or the other. Well, I'm not deferring to anyone. I'm all powerful. It's like, yeah, well, that's all well and good, but there's still a step beyond. So there needs to be that humility and that deference to the supreme Creator of all. And when that is there, coupled with your own purifying, greater and greater knowing of your own divine self, that harmonic union is what creates the mastery. And that's what creates the safety, as we'll call it. Not where do I run to, where do I live? Which does not mean don't go anywhere, because the divine may guide you somewhere. So, but it's not out of fear. It's out of providence. It's out of revelation. There's a huge difference. It may look the same on the outside, but, if I, wake up tomorrow morning and God reveals to me, move to Colorado, move to New Mexico, I will just happily get in my car and get my things and go. I won't going to be running saying, oh, here comes the tsunami. So I really, I do put levity in a lot of what I say to help, get past people's barricades of their minds. But I in no way mean to be irreverent. I have great compassion for what's going on. I have great compassion for what's going to continue to go on. And it is going to escalate beyond exponentially, beyond anything you could even imagine. Some of those sci-fi movies that talk about the earth changes, they're fairly close to accurate. They're a little overdone, but in principle, they're pretty close to accurate. So